Hi, folks. If you ever wondered what happens when America trades in law and order for feelings and fundraising links, you're about to get your answer. We're living in a time where the concept of self-defense is being perverted, looting is reparations, and apparently stabbing a teenager in the heart qualifies you for a GoFundMe-style glow-up. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf is dead, and now there's a growing movement to recast his accused killer, Karmelo Anthony, as some kind of misunderstood victim. Today we're diving into the left's favorite Olympic event, race-based mental gymnastics. From teary-eyed testimony about Foot Locker jobs to a bail system that works harder for violent offenders than it does for struggling families, this is what happens when compassion turns into a political weapon. The media looks away, the activists get louder, and the actual victim becomes a political inconvenience. Let's jump right into it.
Within the last hour, a judge granted the request to lower the bond for a North Texas teen facing capital murder charges. 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony is accused of stabbing and killing another student at a track meet in Frisco. Anthony claims he acted in self-defense. Chris Sadeghi live from the courthouse in McKinney. And Chris, the judge heard from Anthony's family this morning before making her decision.
Yeah, Kara, this hearing just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. In it, we heard from Karmelo Anthony's father. He testified about his son, and in the end, the judge did decide to lower the bond from $1 million to $250,000. Karmelo Anthony entered the courtroom handcuffed, wearing a yellow inmate jumpsuit. He spoke only to identify himself to the judge and stared straight forward while his father, Andrew Anthony, testified about how his son is the oldest of 4 siblings, a straight-A student, active in his church, and worked 2 jobs while serving as captain of the football and track team. To this point, he's not had any criminal history. All factors his defense brought up when asking the judge to lower the bond. The amount they were asking for was $150,000. The prosecution, though, argued the bond should have stayed at $1 million, even asking Andrew Anthony about the online fundraiser that's raised $412,000 for his son's defense. Ultimately, though, the judge said the purpose of bond is not a punishment, but to ensure the defendant returns for his court dates and to protect the community. If Anthony does post the $250,000 bond, he will be on house arrest, confined to his home with a leg monitor, and cannot leave unless the court grants permission. Asked by Judge Angela Tucker if he understood the terms of the bond, Karmelo Anthony simply said yes. Austin Metcalf's family, the victim's family, was in the courtroom. It was a packed courtroom, not a seat to be had, and the judge did acknowledge the amount of scrutiny on this case, not only from the media, but the general public, pointing out that she's presided over many murder trials involving many different races, and that she has never seen the amount of security precautions having to be taken by deputies as what they're seeing in this case. Kara, back to you.
And shortly after that, Anthony was released from jail, and it should be noted that even though his Give, Send, Go campaign had raked in nearly $500,000 at that point, it wasn't even that money that was used to pay the $25,000 required to bond him. No, someone else stepped in to spring a teen accused of stabbing another in the chest free. Now, for anyone with a pair of eyes, what happened here wasn't justice. It was courtroom theater of the dirtiest kind. First off, let's dismantle the entire emotional sales pitch from Anthony's defense. We were treated to a highlight reel of his greatest hits. Straight-A student, youth pastor, Foot Locker Associate of the Year, captain of this, leader of that. And look, all of that might be true, but last I checked, being the track team captain doesn't give you license to stab someone in the chest. This isn't a college application. This is a capital murder case. The fact that the defense leaned so hard into resume building instead of confronting the actual facts of the case is a textbook appeal to emotion, an attempt to cloud judgment with irrelevant character details rather than actual evidence. Then there's the judge's own little sermon. She says bond is not punishment. It's to ensure the defendant shows up to court. That sounds reasonable if we're talking about someone charged with shoplifting. But in a case where a teen is dead, we're just supposed to ignore the severity of the charge because Anthony said yes politely when asked if he understood the terms of his release? That's not justice. That's a complete perversion of it in search of a very specific political and ideological outcome. And speaking of severity, where was the rigorous scrutiny of Anthony's self-defense claim that we've been hearing about all week? Under Texas law, a valid self-defense claim argument requires evidence of an imminent threat, the use of proportional force, and, outside of limited circumstances, a duty to retreat if possible. Yet, there's no evidence Metcalf was armed, no detailed account of any imminent danger that would justify lethal force, and no explanation of why retreat wasn't an option. Prosecutors even referenced a separate altercation involving Anthony just weeks earlier, a potentially relevant pattern of behavior that was conveniently brushed aside. So what we witnessed wasn't a thorough legal analysis, it was selective leniency from the judge. And let's not ignore the big elephant in the courtroom, the fundraising. Over $415,000 was raised for Karmelo Anthony. And when asked about it, the father practically shrugged, saying it's not as simple as making a phone call to access the funds. Really? Because it seems a whole lot easier for some folks to raise money after a murder charge than it is for most people to make rent. And still, the judge granted the bond reduction. So which is it? Is Anthony too broke to pay or too funded to need to? But here's a real kicker. The unprecedented level of security of the courthouse. Not for a cartel hitman, not for a serial killer, but for this case. Why? Because everyone involved knows exactly what game is being played. And it has nothing to do with justice. This isn't about weighing facts or upholding the law. It's about managing optics, bracing for backlash, and navigating a political minefield built by activists and amplified by media narratives. The race-based mental gymnastics are already in full swing, with a growing effort to reframe this as yet another tale of a young black man being railroaded by the system. Never mind that the system just lowered his bond, approved house arrest, and gave him every benefit of the doubt. If this were truly about justice, it wouldn't be igniting this kind of chaos. But again, everyone with a pair of eyes and a brain behind it knows this isn't about justice. Meanwhile, activists are trying to draw comparisons between Karmelo Anthony and Kyle Rittenhouse, as if every self-defense claim is created equal. But let's be real. Kyle Rittenhouse had multiple angles of footage, corroborating witnesses, and clear threats to his life during a riot where police had abandoned the area. He ran toward the police with his hands up after the incident. Karmelo Anthony, no videos so far, no witnesses confirming his story publicly, and no transparent evidence of a lethal threat that would justify stabbing someone in the chest. Yet somehow Anthony's getting the kid glove treatment from the same media that tried to crucify Rittenhouse before a single piece of evidence came out. Kyle was smeared as a white supremacist and denied bond for months. Karmelo gets his bond reduced, house arrest, and a sympathetic character campaign. This isn't justice, it's preferential treatment wrapped in identity politics, and a double standard couldn't be clearer. The truth is, this case is a mirror. It reflects the deeply broken state of our country, where criminal justice is being twisted into social currency, where guilt and innocence are filtered through the lens of identity, not facts. Austin Metcalf is dead. And instead of centering him, the actual victim, we're watching a media and legal apparatus bend over backwards to make sure Karmelo Anthony gets a redemption arc. This isn't about fairness, it's about fear. Fear of being called racist. Fear of stepping out of line with the left's narrative. And fear more than anything else that if we actually hold people accountable equally, the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Now you might be asking yourself, but who was this judge that was so lenient on Anthony? Well, I don't think you're going to be surprised by any of this.
I didn't see a female in my hometown that was an attorney until I was in law school, and went back to intern, and certainly not a person of color. And so now when we can have, summer interns come up and they are every race, creed, color, gender, but they can see someone that looks like them on the bench, I think that is so beneficial because it's representation. And when they look at me, young kids, law students, whoever it is, I want them to say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
And now we know exactly why Judge Angela Tucker reduced the bond for Karmelo Anthony. It wasn't because the facts of the case demanded leniency. It wasn't because the law required it. It was because Tucker sees the courtroom not as a place for justice, but as a stage for DEI pageantry. This resurfaced clip from the judge says it all. Tucker doesn't talk about the law or the Constitution or the responsibility that comes with wielding the gavel. She talks about representation, about how important it is for kids to see someone who looks like them on the bench. Not someone qualified, not someone fair, someone who looks like them. This is clearly not about blind justice, but instead about curated optics. And let's be clear, this isn't just identity politics, it's identity jurisprudence. The moment a judge decides his skin color and personal background are central to the mission of the court, the law stops being the standard. And we saw that in full effect when Judge Tucker slashed Anthony's bond by 75%, despite the fact that he's accused of stabbing a peer at a public event, fleeing the scene, and later casually explaining to his school officer that he was protecting himself. Protecting himself from what? From someone telling him to move out from under a pop-up tent? From being grabbed after issuing a threat? That's not self-defense under Texas law. That's escalation. And yet, Tucker chose to ignore the clear facts and treat this like a social work seminar. Meanwhile, let's remember the actual victim here, Austin Metcalf, a young athlete with dreams of college and a bright future who died in his twin brother's arms. But instead of centering him, the system, thanks to people like Angela Tucker, is bending over backwards to give his accused killer the benefit of every doubt, the softest bond terms, and a platform to reshape his image. And now, predictably, Tucker has gone private on social media, not because she's worried about justice being undermined, but because she doesn't want to answer for the role she's playing in turning a murder trial into a diversity seminar. Let's not confuse criticism with harassment. What she's facing now is backlash, earned backlash, for allowing her political ideology to override the rule of law. And I think this clip shows that this wasn't a one-off lapse in judgment. It's part of a broader decay in the legal system where DEI talking points have replaced impartiality and where judges think being seen is more important than being right. Angela Tucker should be impeached and sanctioned, not just for reducing the bond, but for making it crystal clear that her courtroom operates on narrative, not law. Because when the bench becomes a pulpit for social justice theory, real justice dies. And Austin Metcalf is unfortunately being proof of that. Now, this story takes an infuriating turn when you realize that Karmelo Anthony and his family are using this murder as a springboard to upgrade their lifestyle. We're talking about a kid accused of shoving a knife into another teen's chest at a high school track meet. And now he and his family are moving into a $900,000 home in a gated community complete with Amazon deliveries and a brand new car. Paper plates and all. The same family that pleaded financial hardship to get a $1 million bond reduced to $250,000 is now parking multiple vehicles in a luxury driveway and fielding packages like it's Christmas in April. You can't make this stuff up. And let's be clear, this isn't just galling. It's a slap in the face to the justice system, to Austin Metcalf's family, and to every honest person who's ever been lectured about white privilege or systemic oppression. Because apparently, if you stab someone in the heart and hit the right political notes, you don't just get to walk free. You do it while living better than most Americans. A bond meant to reflect the seriousness of a first-degree murder charge was reduced under the premise of hardship. This isn't hardship. This is clearly a hustle. Meanwhile, the family has claimed they supposedly can't access the $440,000 raised on Give, Send, Go, but they sure seem to be accessing something because someone paid that bond, someone bought that car, and someone's footing the bill for a $3,500 a month house inside Richwoods, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Frisco, Texas. You don't accidentally land in a gated community. You choose it. And if you're broke, you don't choose it. And let's not forget, the whole justification for cutting Anthony's bond down was that the family was under pressure, needed protection, and couldn't afford the legal costs. Now we find out that donations are being used to move into this expensive house and pay for security. That wasn't what the judge was told when this was framed as a family on the verge of collapse. That wasn't what the courtroom heard when the defense played the sympathy card like it was a winning lottery ticket. This is clearly not about justice. It's a well-funded PR operation with legal cosplay stapled on top. And let's not miss the timing. Less than a day after being released on bond, the brand new car shows up with paper tags. The community gets flooded with deliveries, and neighbors who had no idea this family was even living there start raising alarms because, shocker, people aren't thrilled to learn that a murder suspect just moved into the neighborhood with a six-figure war chest and a legal team spinning a tale of hardship. Meanwhile, what does Austin Metcalf's family get? Silence. They lost their son. They watched him die in his twin brother's arms. And instead of justice, they get to watch the accused killer rebrand himself in a gated suburb, wearing suits, driving brand new cars, and collecting donations like it's a scholarship fund. So ask yourself, what kind of country are we becoming when guilt and innocence hinge less on facts and more on who cries loudest, who spins the best narrative, and who benefits most from public sympathy? When murder trials start looking like marketing campaigns and accountability takes a backseat to identity politics, are we really pursuing justice or just manufacturing it for the cameras? If the system bends this easily under pressure, what happens when you need it to stand firm? These aren't isolated failures. They're symptoms of a deeper rot. And if we keep letting activists, opportunists, and cowardly officials rewrite the rules mid-game, then don't be surprised when the next verdict doesn't just insult your intelligence, it erases the truth entirely. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Have a terrific day. Peace.